But before we get into that, something that we have to talk about, no ifs, ands, or buts, and we're going to jump right into it. Peacemaker season 2 has arrived. Episode 1, it released last night at 8 p.m., depending on, or something like that, depending on where you're at, maybe even 9. Episode 1 titled The Ties That Grind. And this is going to be a spoiler-filled discussion, so keep that in mind. But if you had the opportunity to tune in to season 2 so far, episode 1 of Peacemaker, I think you have nothing but to be happy about. I think this was so let's go back a little bit. Obviously, season 1 dealt with a lot of the aftermath of the Suicide Squad and John Cena's Peacemaker, kind of like finding his place in this bigger universe. And he wants to be a hero so bad, but obviously he has his past and so many terrible things that he's done. I mean, if you've seen the Suicide Squad, which if you're watching this, I assume you have, but some of the things that he's done that he's really trying to reconcile with Christopher Smith. And, along the season, we have this ragtag group of people. We've got Amelia Harcourt, played by Jennifer Holland, Danielle Brooks's Leota Abadayo, Freddie Stroma, who plays Adrian Chase, aka Vigilante. Steve Agee is back as his John Economos role. Who else do we have? Who plays I can't think of his name, the dad. It's off the top of my head. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, season 1 obviously dealt with the butterfly situation, the invasion, the butterfly and kind of alien invasion that was going on and all that. And it really just kind of like cemented Peacemaker's place in what he wants to become and his identity. And he wants to be a hero. He doesn't want to be a villain. He doesn't want people to have that idea of him, because he's very much aware that the rest of the world looks at him as kind of like a loser, even like the superheroes and all those people. They look at him like a loser. They look at him like he's like a douchebag, and they look at him just like he's just like not the guy. I think we all know. I'm sure a lot of ourselves can feel that, and things that we've done, and we just feel like a little inadequate, and our past and our troubles and what we've done kind of follows through life, whether they're brought up to us or they're just always in the back of our mind. But that's no different from these characters. And so he's really trying to navigate, his life and his future. And he had a little bit of a taste of being a hero, even though, in the Suicide Squad. But things didn't go as planned, because of course we know with Peacemaker, peace at any cost. And he doesn't care how many people he has to kill, to get peace. That's what he's willing to do. So season 2 leads off, not too far. It seems not too far from where, season 1 ended. Peacemaker is still trying to find his way. People are still not taking him seriously. He's going to kind of like these superhero, like the Justice Gang interviews, because he wants to be a part of that. And he's just trying to find his way, find any way that he can to be a hero. Freddie Stroma's just been doing his thing, or Freddie Stroma, Vigilante's doing his thing, flying on the radar. He's like a cook or something like that. No like team affiliations or anything like that. Jennifer Holland, her Amelia Harcourt, she's having a rough time, just like Peacemaker too. She's trying to figure out her place in this world. And, with Adebayo's outing of Amanda Waller, being behind, the Suicide Squad and this butterfly invasion and the lives it took and all that, with her outing her, Waller's very clearly behind the scenes. We don't see Viola Davis's character, but we can definitely feel the aftermath and the ongoings of what's coming of that. And so Harcourt's been essentially blacklisted. She's interviewing and going for these government jobs, and she's just striking out, not getting them. This past invasion and all that, and the outing is definitely coming back to haunt her. Economos, he has a bit more, I think, of a backstory, a relationship with Waller, so he's still there. I'm sure in some kind of way that they're kind of using him against his friends. But he's still there. He's kind of keeping an eye now on Peacemaker, and he can't really help but want to be involved and want to be there for him. And yeah, so we're all in really, really different places. And, so this season's going to really deal with, introducing not only just its story, but really transitioning this character and these characters and this story into the greater DCU. And James Gunn has already said that you don't necessarily have to take everything that's season one as canon. Everything was canon for the world as it existed at that time. But now that it's joined this greater DCU universe, he's gone to say that everything that you see in this season, if it's shown, if it's talked about, or anything like that, that becomes canon. If it's not, you can just essentially assume that it's not until it gets brought up. But I really, really, really liked this first episode. I think it's a great way to kickstart this new season and kickstart its transition into the greater DCU. You know, it starts off with pretty quickly. We see immediately we're right with Peacemaker and Begley, and you know, Eagly's waking him up, and because there's some kind of like interference he's feeling, or I don't really necessarily know. It's not really explained. I don't think how Begley happens to know the path or what's going on with this door or so, or maybe it's not the right Begley. I don't even know if we haven't addressed that yet. Maybe it's the wrong Begley. Maybe we have a different Begley. Maybe the same thing that happened to, you know, Peacemaker at the end of this episode is the same thing that happened to one of the other Begley. Maybe we have two different, and they're gonna have to learn to bond. I don't know. You know, that would be kind of heartbreaking. Is Peacemaker finally gets this emotional hug that he got from Begley in season one, and now he has a different Begley. I think that'd be probably a pretty interesting route to go. But anyway. Peacemaker, you know, the that pocket universe, I forget what it's called, but that his dad built that allows him to kind of go into this pocket universe. He sees this other door leading to a different universe, and he goes in, and you know, lo and behold, his dad is there. His dad is still alive, and his dad is kind, and his brother's there. He, you know, we see a little bit later, his brother is there. His brother is still alive, and Peacemaker is at a loss for words. He doesn't know how to handle himself in this situation, and we get a lot of these, you know, this really nice and wholesome fun moment of the three of them, like kind of like sitting around, like sort of like an office, I don't know why I keep on wanting to say something, that library kind of situation, and it's kind of like that nice little like library fireplace, having a drink kind of like vibe, and they're just cracking jokes and they're just talking about their past in a really loving family way, and you could tell that, you know, it's really hitting Chris Smith. I guess I'll refer to him as that too. But it's really hitting him in the feels because this is all he's wanted in his life, is somewhere where he belongs. You know, obviously his dad has been the way he is, and he knows that his dad is the way he is, and he lost his brother when he was younger, and we know the backstory behind that, how that happened earlier in his life. So Peacemaker definitely has felt like he doesn't have a place to belong. He's always been used, you know, as a weapon at this point, whether it's before the Suicide Squad or in the Suicide Squad or Peacemaker season one. You know, he's always been used as a weapon, not like brought in as a person to talk to and understand him and his goals, and you know, really allowing him to have like a family, you know, that revolves around him and he revolves around himself. So, you know, there's not a lot of dialogue on him. He's just kind of listening and going through it. And it's that, you know, you can definitely just, I gotta say, John Cena, I forget who it was that just came out with it, but they're talking about like the best wrestler turned actor. And they named Dave Bautista the best wrestler turned actor. And well deserved. I would agree. But at the same token, what John Cena has done in the last few years, with the roles that he's taken and how much he's put into himself, obviously this Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad, and the comedy Ricky Stanicky, and there's a lot of projects that he's taken part in, and he's done really good. He's just progressed, and he's progressed, and he's getting to the point to where like you can really feel and read the emotions on his face. There's some actors like Tom Hardy where they could stay silent and you could just watch their face and you can understand how they feel and what they're thinking. And John Cena's doing a fantastic job. And James Gunn, he did an interview recently. I forget with who, but he's talking about how John Cena has really stepped it up. And one of his favorite scenes that he's filmed is later in this season. I think it's like episode 6 or something like that. It's like a discussion between him and Amelia Harcourt. He says it's one of my favorite scenes I've ever filmed, and it's some of the best acting I've ever seen John Cena do. And he really takes it up a notch. I'm really excited to get there. I can't remember if it's episode 5, 6, 7. It's somewhere around there, but really looking forward to it. Amelia Harcourt, like I said, she's having a rough time, and we get this really cool, badass bar scene where she just goes, and you realize at the end of it that she's gone to pick a fight. She's not just going to have a drink or let a little steam off. She goes and she's looking for a fight. And we get this really badass scene where someone, this other guy's kind of like trying to like catcall her and do all that, and she's not having it, and she just kicks his entire bar's ass, and then in turn gets her ass kicked and thrown out of the bar. And we leave that scene with a little bit of a smile, and that's where we're like, okay, this is what she's been behind. Like I said, Economos has been kind of keeping an eye on Peacemaker and doing his thing. We see a little conversation between him and Vigilante. Vigilante, again, is like working like as a cook or something like that. And we have this like nice little back and forth. And then we realize these guys have been in touch. They talk like almost every day. And Economos, I think Economos has gone from like someone who just can't stand these people, and all he wants to do is his work, and he just kind of wants to be in his own thing. And so now he cares about people. Like he doesn't want to rat out Peacemaker, and he doesn't want to. He talks to Vigilante every day, and he goes to Adebayo for advice. And I just really, really like that this group has become like a tight knit, like little family. It's become a little family that, whether they like to admit it or not, they look out for each other, and I absolutely love that. We had the addition of David Denman. I'm sorry, I apologize. I meant to put this up while we're talking about, but we had the addition of David Denman. As a Keith Smith. A lot of you will recognize him from a lot of stuff, maybe primarily from The Office, where he plays Pam's ex. But he does a great role here. He does a great role of really just playing that calm, like not stoic, but that sincere kind of older brother. And I can't remember if he's supposed to be older or younger, but he definitely lays over a level of comfort and warmth that Peacemaker just immediately receives, and you can tell he just wants to kind of blanket himself in this peace and this love that his dad and his brother are showing. So yeah, all in all, this episode, beginning of the season, this episode was really, really, really good. Obviously, towards the end of it, we get like a nice little battle and a fight between the two, and it's once the other Peacemaker kind of catches our Peacemaker in his bedroom, kind of saying like, oh, well, this is my life. This is my stuff. This is where I feel like I should belong. And then spoiler alert, boom. Peacemaker's dead. There's this cool fight, and they're kind of going back for it. And there's a moment where we'll say Peacemaker Prime almost dies. But he's able to pull a last minute situation and a last minute attack, and it just sends substitute Peacemaker up into the ceiling with a gaping hole in his stomach, and that's that. And we get a good idea of where this is going to kind of lead the rest of the season. Plus with the there's a post credits scene, and James Gunn has gone on to say that you can expect post credit scenes for every single episode of this season, which I think is really cool. One thing I will state that I thought was interesting was that finally we get retconned. We have a better idea of how they're going to go about this Peacemaker transition into the DCU. And we know obviously in the original season it ended with Peacemaker carrying Harcourt out, I think, and we see Superman, Aquaman, The Flash, and Wonder Woman. And now they've gone and substituted that for Mr. Terrific, who doesn't get any lines, Superman, that doesn't get any lines, Supergirl, which actually kind of surprised me. I was surprised that they included her, because they could have easily just went the 4, right? They could have easily just went the 4, but they went all 5. And so we got Supergirl, but then we got Guy Gardner's Green Lantern, and we got I can't off the top of my head, but Hawkgirl. So we got Hawkgirl as well. So Mr. Terrific, Superman, Supergirl, Green Lantern, and Hawkgirl. And only Green Lantern and Hawkgirl have lines. But I was definitely surprised at the inclusion of Supergirl, because obviously this takes place a while ago from where we're starting season 2. And there's definitely no inclination that Supergirl or Superman were technically part of this group at that time. I don't know. It's a little confusing, but they've gone on to retcon it. And so this is kind of like how we're to believe that this is how it leads off. And this is kind of goes in line with James Gunn's, like, if you see it and you hear it, it becomes canon. But yeah, so season 2, episode 1, Peacemaker, I loved it. I'm excited for where the rest of the season goes. And I'm really loving the world building being done with the DCU and with what James Gunn is doing. And I'm really looking forward to further development. Obviously we have Supergirl, which, the grapevine we're hearing is really, really good. We've got Clayface. We've got the Lanterns series with Aaron Pierre and Kyle Chandler. So that looks really, really good too. I'm really excited. I got to be honest, right now, aside from the Avengers stuff, and obviously that's pretty much all that there is right now in terms of, the Marvel side of things, except for like Spider-Man and all that. But I think this is like one of those few periods of time where I'm genuinely more excited with what the DCU is going to do compared to what Marvel is currently doing. Obviously, Marvel has a weird kind of downward slope going. And DCU is kind of on the up and up, and they're putting out really good content so far. Everything from the Christopher Reeves doc to Creature Commandos to Superman to Peacemaker. They're hitting the nail on the head every shot that they get. And that makes me really excited. And I can only assume with the creators that they have attached to everything and what we know is coming out, Clayface being kind of a more body horror type of film, that's different. It's excited. And we know that every story and all these characters are going to sort of exist in their own pocket with all the world themes. Like Metropolis is going to feel very different than Gotham City, even though that they're in the same universe. And we could assume the same for Star City and all that. But this was fun. Obviously, we didn't get to talk about everything we wanted to talk about. We got, like I said, some information from his childhood. White Rabbit appears, her powers are to, to duplicate herself, but we see her leaving the superheroes meeting, kind of crying. We see Maxwell Lord, show back up, in the interview scene with Green Lantern and Hawkgirl. This really funny, but also sad scene where they're interviewing Peacemaker, and he can hear everything that they're saying, and they're just talking shit to him nonstop. All this, not to him, but about him to each other, and they don't realize he can hear everything, and he's having these really sincere opinions and thoughts and the ways he's expressing himself, but it hurts. And obviously everybody that they've interviewed, they've been able to hear, and they didn't realize that. But Sean Gunn is back, returning his role as Maxwell Lord, which is kind of cool. We get some mention of Lex Luthor and the dimensional rift that happened in Metropolis. Michael Ian Black's Clevis Thornway appears, from the Sphere news that we saw Peacemaker, 2 other Peacemaker show up in. We understand that there's some dialogue and some talk about some metahumans breaking out, which we can assume that probably has something to do with the Creature Commandos. And lots of other Easter eggs. I know that there's gonna be a lot of other people like out there, like New Rock Stars and all those that kind of break those down. But it's definitely fun to go through. There's a lot of cool stuff on there, so I highly recommend it. Peacemaker season 2, episode 1. It's out. Check it out if you haven't.